You just want to start chopping up your onion basically. So if you just cut the skin off your onion. It's quite a useful tip to have like a little bowl to put all your peelings in when you're cooking. Save you kind of making trips within. So just peel all the skin off your onion, and then you just want to quite finely chop it. So I'll show you what I've done in a sec. See, normally I would have all of this chopped, but I'm chopping it along with you. So you want it just quite sort of medium chopped like that if you want to have a look. It doesn't have to be too fine, but just kind of chopped into medium chunks. So I'm just going to do the other half of my onion. And then while you're chopping that up, you can get some olive oil in your pan on. So if you get your saucepan, just put it onto like a medium heat. And then you want about a tablespoon of olive oil. So just get that heating up basically while you're chopping. So once you've done your onion, you can make a start on your pepper. So with your pepper, I'll show you how much you want to chop that. So again, get rid of the stalk and all of the seeds. And you just want to chop it quite small so that it cooks down more quickly. So I'll show you how small I'm cutting it. So chopping it just into some quite small pieces like that, just so it cooks a lot more quickly basically. So keep chopping that all down. So I want to use the whole pepper here. Again, chop any bits of white out that you don't want. And give your oil a swirl around in the pan, just to make sure it's covering the whole bottom of the pan then as it's heating. Basically your onions and peppers will look like that. So both similar, kind of a little bit chunky but not too thick. So the pepper's quite easy to cook down. And then if your oils, is everybody's oil heated? Once your oil feels like it's hot, you want to just add your onions in first. So pop your onions into the pan. And you want to make sure that it's just slightly sizzling as you're putting the onion in. And then you just want to make sure that all of the onion is coated through there with the oil. And then you can turn the heat up a little bit now. So you could, if you can see on my ring there, so it's like a medium heat. So while the onion's cooking, you can start chopping up your garlic. So you want like one large clove, or two, I've got 2 small cloves there of garlic. I'm sure everyone knows this trick, but to get your skin off your garlic, just use the back of your knife and press down with the palm of your hand and the skin comes off. So if you've got a garlic press, you can use a garlic press for this. If not, you just want to really finely dice your garlic up. Your onions should be sizzling away at this point. If they're not sizzling, then you just want to turn the heat up. You give them a little stir. Just make sure they're not sticking or burning. Everybody up to speed? What we do yet? All right, so just keep cooking your onions down a little bit so they soften. So as I was saying at the start of this call, so shakshuka is a really nice Middle Eastern brunch recipe. So you can have it for breakfast, lunch, dinner, as we're having it tonight. It's really healthy, really quick to make, and you can just serve it in your pan, just on a chopping board on the table, and then kind of dish it up and then dip your bread in and stuff. So yeah, it's a really good one to have in your cooking repertoire. So your onions should be getting quite nice and soft now. Show you mine. So they're cooking down there and softening. So you want them to look a little bit like that. And then you can pop your peppers in now. So again, keep the heat sort of quite a high, medium heat. And just mix your peppers around with your onions. So the reason you don't want your peppers too big in this is because you're not cooking it for a massive length of time. So it totally depends on personal taste, but it depends if you want your peppers, if you keep them bigger, they might be a bit crunchy. So that's why you want to cook them down a little bit. So again, your pan should be sizzling away. You just keep stirring that around. And you can pop your garlic in now. So I've just finely chopped that there. Again, if you've got garlic presser, you can use that. Just add that in there. And then you can start adding your spices in them. So It depends what you've managed to get in your cooking. So 2 of the key spices I had were cumin and smoked paprika. So you want those. And then if you've got them as an extra, Ras-el-Hanout. So if anyone's managed to get that. So that's a Moroccan spice. It's really lovely, but if you haven't got it, you can do that. And then Harissa, if anyone's managed to get that one as well, which you can get generally in most supermarkets. This is a green harissa, but you can have a red harissa. So if you haven't got the others, just make do with the cumin and the paprika. So you want to get a teaspoon, and then you want to have a heaped teaspoon of cumin. So do like that, like a decent heaped teaspoon. Then add that to your pan. Give that a mix round. You'll find that the spices, if you don't stir this, they'll start to stick. So you want to make sure that you're stirring that round. And then,
I'm so sorry to interrupt. How many teaspoons was it, please?
Just 1 heaped teaspoon of cumin and then 1 of paprika.
Awesome, thank you.
That's all right. So I've got it's a proper Spanish paprika here. So I'm just going to shake mine in, but you want to use a teaspoon of that as well. Give it a nice smokiness. You should get some nice smells from the pan at this point with your cumin and your paprika. I mean, if you happen to add more cumin, that is, you know, there's no problem with that. So you should have quite a nice colour. Start to get a nice colour on your peppers and onions at this point. So it should be nicely coated in spices. And as I say, keep giving that a stir. You might want to turn the heat down slightly if your spices are sticking. And it's a good chance to give it a seasoning. So I've got my sergeant pepper pot. So give it a season of salt and pepper. Give it a good grating of pepper. And then you want to just give it just a couple of pinches of salt. So a good grating of pepper and a couple of pinches of salt there. And again, give that a good stir around. So I'm using Ras-el-Hanout, so I'm going to put my Ras-el-Hanout in now. But as I said, don't worry if you haven't got that, you can make do without. But if you make this again, if you like it, it's quite nice to have the harissa and the Ras-el-Hanout. And I'm just adding a teaspoon of each of those into this. So the harissa is more of a paste, and then the Ras-el-Hanout is just a dry spice. Again, you can get both of those in most kind of good supermarkets. You can probably get it online, probably get it on Amazon at the minute if you can't get to the supermarket. But again, giving that a good stir around. So it should be all coated in your spices like that. And then you want to add your hot sauce then. So I'm using something called Cholula hot sauce. So yeah, Tabasco's fine. Yeah, that's good. So it's really up to you how much you want to use. Depends how much you like spice. But I generally give it a pretty healthy shaking of this into it. So I'd say probably about a heaped teaspoon. Depends how spicy you like things, really. I quite like spice, so. And again, just give that a good stir around. And that should take off all the spices on the, if you've got any stuck to the bottom of your pan. That hot sauce should lift them off, so you can coat everything around again. And then you just want to leave that cooking for a couple of minutes, just so all the onions and peppers get coated in the spices. So if you want to get ahead of yourself at this point, if you've got your feta cheese, from the top, you can start cooking that up, cutting it up. So again, it depends how much you want on the top, but for two, probably about, I think I said about 25 grams, so about a chunk a little bit like that. But if you, again, it's up to you, you can put as much or as little on the top as you want. And you can either cut that up or you can crumble it just with your hands. So I'm just going to crumble it. So you literally just want to press it together and just drop it in like that so it crumbles. But you can also chop it up if you prefer. So I'm just going to crumble mine. It's a bit more of a rustic look, you crumbling it, which I quite like. I'll wash my hands there. So make sure you check in on your onions, so nothing burning, any peppers. So you should be getting a good sort of scent off all of this now, all the spices, especially if you've got the Ras-el-Hanout in there. So next you want to get your tin of tomatoes. So I've just got 1 tin of tomatoes here. And then literally just pop them in the pan. Don't get rid of your tin for a second, just keep your tin. We're going to use that in a sec. So you want to just swirl your tomatoes around, placing all of the onions and peppers in the tomatoes. So it will look a little bit like this. Sorry, the steam going into the camera. So that's the basis of your tomato sauce. So again, you want to put the heat up to a sort of medium, high medium heat. And then I've already boiled my kettle, but if you want to pop your kettle on to boil, you're going to use what's left in the tin there, the bits of tomato juice, and then you're just going to put a little bit of water in and swirl that round to add to the pan, just so it makes a bit of a looser sauce. So make sure that's starting to bubble away, your sauce there. You might want to give your pan a shake so that it's quite flat on the bottom. So you haven't really got any gaps. You want it to kind of look like it's coating the whole bottom of the pan. So if your kettle's still boiling, don't worry. What you want to do when your kettle's boiled is you just want to put in, I'd fill it about half, actually about a third full of hot water. And then just give that, obviously watch you don't spill any hot water on yourself here, safety hazard. Just give that a bit of a swirl round. So you're getting all of the tomato juices out of the bottom. See it look like that then inside? So it's a good trick to not waste anything. And then you just want to give everything a good stir and just whack the heat up then on the bottom of the pan to a high heat. If you want to get this bubbling away. So it should look like that when you've added your water. So it's a little bit looser. And then just leave that on a high heat there. Once you've added your hot water, you can add in a squeeze of tomato puree once you've added in your hot water. So again, you want to use about 2 teaspoons of tomato puree. Pop that in with your water and then just give it a good stir around. Again, you can keep shaking your pan so that it's all lying on the bottom. So you want to start seeing some bubbles. coming up in your pan, that's how high you want the heat. So it's simmering, really. Keep giving them all of that stir so nothing's sticking onto the bottom. You know, you can be quite flexible with your, if you make this again and you like it, you can be quite flexible with what you're putting into it. So, you know, you can add chopped chili, you could even add like a pinch of cinnamon, dried ground coriander. You can be quite flexible with what you want in it, really. It's totally, this is pretty much the core recipe of shakshuka. But you can play around with your taste a little bit. As long as you're kind of keeping to Middle Eastern spices, you can pretty much do it to whatever your taste buds are, really. So your sauce should be, it should be loose, but it should be quite starting to thicken as well. If you can see on there, so you want like quite a thick, but not too firm tomatoey sauce. Everyone at that stage? Their sauces?
We're a little bit runny still. We're a little bit behind you, I think.
Yeah. All right.
Slightly.
So maybe whack the heat up a little bit so it thickens
We've done it now.
quicker.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it bubbling?
Bubbling, yeah, but like it started about 20 seconds ago or so.
Yeah. So just keep giving it a good stir so nothing's sticking. Keep flattening it out in the pan. And you want your eggs next, if you get your eggs ready. So these are going to go straight into the pan. So I'll show you how to do those. So I'm going to turn my pan down a bit because mine is nicely thickened to the texture that I want. So again, just to give you an idea, that's what you're looking for. You're looking for quite a nice thick tomato sauce, but it's still quite loose in the pan. But, you know, again, it can be up to you on the consistency. If you want it a bit thicker, that's fine as well. So what you want to do next is you just want to get your eggs ready. So I'm going to use 3 eggs for 2 people. Again, you can use 2 eggs if you want here. You can have 4 eggs. Totally depends. If you're looking for lots of protein, if you've just done Bobby's workout, you might want 2 eggs each. So what you want to do, so turn the heat down a little bit now as you're adding your eggs, just so it doesn't splash at you. So you want to start making little wells in the pan. You want to do it so they're not right next to each other. So as you can start to see there, I've started to make a little well. So basically move the sauce to the side in your pan. So you've got a gap and you can see the bottom of the saucepan is basically what you want. And you literally going to crack, do it on the edge of the pan, crack your eggs straight in. And then you're going to make other holes the same. So you want to have basically 3, if you're using 3 eggs, you want to have 3 holes to crack your eggs straight in. So you crack it on the edge of the pan and then just drop it into each hole. So I'm going to do my final hole here. So again, just move the sauce to the side so you can see the bottom of the pan in a hole. Then just crack your eggs in. And then you want to turn the heat back up to medium heat. Then if you've got a lid for your saucepan, you want to pop your lid on now. If you've not got a lid, then you could just use some tin foil, or you could put a plate on top. But if you've got a lid for your saucepan, then pop that on. So what it's going to do is bake the eggs. So literally, you can pop it slightly to a tilt, so you're letting a little bit of steam out. And you should be able to hear that bubbling away underneath the lid there. So literally just pop the lid over once you pop your eggs in. If you're using pistachios, I don't know if people got pine nuts or pistachios. If you've got shelled pistachios, then you might want to start unshelling those. If not, then you just want to start lightly chopping them. So again, it's up to you how much you use, really, how many nuts you kind of want on top. But I'd say about 25 grams. So if you've got a packet, like I've got a 100-gram packet, just use a quarter of that packet. And you just want to lightly chop them up. So basically just get your knife and slightly chop them so that they're not kind of cut into different sizes, really. So again, you should hear your pan bubbling away here underneath the lid. Doesn't matter if smooth pistachios stay whole, just to add a bit of a different texture to the top. So just keep chopping those up. If you're using pine nuts, you don't need to chop them. So unless you want them a little bit smaller, it's totally up to you on that. So if you want, you can check your eggs to make sure they're starting to cook away there. So what you want with your eggs is you want it to basically cook through, but you want your yolk to still be a little bit runny. So you just need to keep checking on them basically to make sure you get to that point. And then your coriander or your flat leaf parsley, again, it's totally up to you how much you use, but I'd take a good handful. So I've got a pretty big bunch of coriander there, and I'm just going to tear off a good handful there. So I'm going to use about that much on top. But again, depends how much you personally want her to use. So just finely chop your coriander or your flat leaf parsley. Just like you would any kind of herb topping, you want it to be quite finely chopped down. So I'll show you mine. So keep chopping until you get that. It's quite a fine consistency. It doesn't matter if there's a few bits that are a little bit thicker. So this basically is your topping for your shakshuka. So you want to just double check your eggs at this point. So mine aren't done yet, but they're starting to completely have a white completely over the yolk. So I'll just give you sort of on there. See, they're starting to have a white over the yolk. So you want to keep cooking that, because if you test it with your wooden spoon and it's still wobbly on top, the white, it's not quite there yet. So this is your kind of all your topping. Excuse my spillage of off my spoon there. So you got your feta, your pistachios. So some I've chopped up, some I've kept whole, and then I've got my coriander there as well. So again, you can use pine nuts, or you can use flat leaf parsley. Also in future, if you don't want to use feta, halloumi, grilled halloumi is really nice, chopped up on top. There's another option. Again, keeping kind of Middle Eastern flavours. And then I've got something called Zaatar from the top of mine when I serve it. So again, it's just from Sainsbury's, but it's basically like herbs and sesame seeds. It's got a Moroccan spice called sumac and cumin seeds and sesame seeds. If you've got any sesame seeds in the house, you can put that on top as a substitute, or you could equally just have a little sprinkling of oregano or thyme, or even a little bit more cumin from your jar of cumin on top. Again, it's just to kind of give it a bit of colour on the top. So have a look at your eggs again. So mine aren't far off now. So I'm going to switch my pan around. This one is cooking a bit more. So they're still not quite there on top. So you want to make sure the white is completely cooked through on the top there. So with your bread as well, so you can maybe pop this in the toaster. If you're having toasted bread, you can have it just with bread. So I've got a couple of slices of sourdough. Sourdough works really well because it's really crunchy and it's really good for dipping into the sauce. But equally, any bread would be useful for toasting. So I'm just going to pop mine in the toaster. So the best thing for this is to serve it in the pan on a chopping board. So you can just wipe your chopping board down when you're done and pop it on that, save washing up. So you might want to get a couple of, it's quite good to have a bowl, a slightly kind of like a pasta bowl for this, but you could just use a plate. So I serve it in like that, like a pasta bowl, just so you kind of, you've got all that sauce contained in it. But equally, you can just use a plate. So you might want to get your bowls out ready. So having a look at your eggs at this point. So say another 30 seconds and mine are done. So if your eggs are looking like they're done, just turn the heat out on your pan. If they're not quite there yet, then just keep your lid on, keep cooking those. So again, you want it to be, the white to be completely cooked through, and then your yolk to be a little bit runny. It's obviously dependent on everyone's hob and how quickly it might cook. So my eggs are done. So I'm going to turn the heat out on my pan. So if your eggs are done, you can just kind of, any kind of sauce that's splashed up above, you can just push that down back into the pan. So it should look like this in the end. So your eggs should be cooked within it like that. And my yolks are still wobbly and not cooked through. So that's how you want it to look when it's done. And check on your toes at this point as well. So what you want to do when you've turned the heat out, if your eggs are ready, is you literally want to get your coriander or your flat leaf parsley, your feta and your pistachios and your pine nuts and sprinkle them over. So start with the nuts. Literally, you want to, as I said, you want to serve this in the pan. So just sprinkle them all over the top of this. This gives it all nice colour as well. There's lots of extra flavour and texture as well. And then you want to go with your herbs next. So again, just sprinkle them. There's no kind of set way of doing this, obviously. You just want to make sure everything's covered with the herbs and the cheese and the nuts. And then lastly, your feta cheese. So again, sprinkle that over the top. Doesn't matter if some of this is bigger and some of it's smaller chunks. To be honest, that gives it quite a nice rustic feel. And then just wipe my hands there. If you've got za'atar or sesame seeds or a herb or your cumin, if you get your cumin from earlier. So I'm just going to take a few pinches of za'atar and just put that over the top. But again, with your cumin, you just want to take a few pinches of cumin and sprinkle that over the top. And this is what it should look like. So it should be quite set now, your sauce, and your eggs are all in there, and the heat's been turned off, so they should have stayed runny. And then you've got your nuts, your cheese, and your herbs and your spices over the top. And that's it. So you want to basically just serve that on a chopping board. So I'm going to just give this quick wipe, this chopping board, which you can do with yours as well. So you can just use exactly the same board to save your washing up. Just give that a wipe down. And then literally going to pop that on there. And then you want to take your toasted bread, just pop that at the side like that, and you basically get a couple of bowls, forks, and then dig in. And if you want more hot sauce, which I probably will have to go on my eggs, you can just add that into it. And it's a really nice, simple meal to kind of enjoy on the table. So everybody at that point, has everybody managed to make theirs?